Alrighty, welcome to Community News. We have an update on the West Porters Lake Road dumping that was done illegally, where somebody had dumped a tremendous amount of garbage on the side of the West Porters Lake Road next to the brook, which feeds into the main lake that goes into Porters Lake, that feeds into the ocean down towards Lawrencetown Beach. I mean, the main lake from Porters Lake stretches right from Lawrencetown Beach right up pretty near right to the airport. It goes right all the way up to the Myra Road, and if you were to continue to go further, you're not too far from the Halifax International Airport. And I gotta say is we had noticed updates that have been taking place on this illegal dumping. When I turned to the press a couple of weeks ago, I asked the reporter if we could potentially put this into the Chronicle Herald, so the community can know that somebody's dumping illegally on the side of the road, which had been done in that same location numerous of times here on the West Porters Lake Road. But since 2012, this had been an ongoing issue, which I believe is the same person who is a repeated offender, who we like to see cease and desist with their illegal activity in our community of West Porters Lake, and to cease and desist with their actions in our community. In 2012, they had dumped their illegal dumping on the Keith Caldwell, the Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Fisheries, which is just across the road from the illegal dumping site that was done on West Porters Lake Road, adjacent from the Bellfotaine Road intersection. This has been happening since 2012 and it's been ongoing since, and here it is 2020, so it's becoming an issue. So far as I know, as of right now, the RCMP had not been contacted, so we had been seeing progress, which we presume is the illegal dumper who had been removing their debris, garbage, junk from that location, which myself, take my hat off to them and we thank them for that. But there's still stuff to be done. Now we're going to show you some debris here. Here we are, just on top of the site here. Myself had jumped into the ditch and pulled some of their junk out so they can get it out. There was like 4 tires, which they had taken it. There was 2 election signs. Carolyn Scott, who ran for the Liberal Party, the Federal Liberal Party, with what was it, Michael McNady at the time, and the provincial election. The late Sid Press's election signs has been left in the open, where he ran for Daryl Dexter, where he had taken power and fallen from power, and those signs had been removed along with that tremendous amount of carpet that was left behind. So some progress had been made, but we're going to continue with this until this is completed. All of it's gone, because we don't want them dropping their garbage in our community again in the past. I mean, in the past and in the future. We don't want their garbage to continue going on in this location or in any location of the community of Porters Lake, Middle, West, just the general side of Porters Lake altogether. But there had been a person on the Marjorie Drive in that area who had also dumped illegal dumping in that community, which is West Porters Lake. It's right on the border between East Lawrencetown and West Porters Lake, and I'm not sure if it's the same person who dumped this garbage here on the West Porters Lake Road, adjacent between the Bellfotaine Road and the West Porters Lake Road area. If it is, again, we ask that you clean up your mess. If it continues, we're going to contact the RCMP, and if you're caught, you're probably looking at a stiff fine and potential criminal charges. But when you're doing business with me, if I ask you to remove it, if you do, you can guarantee that the police will not be banging on your door, and you will not be handed out a fine or handed a subpoena for court where you face charges. So where you had done that, I'm going to ask that you continue picking up your debris. I don't care if you do it at the day or night. We don't care, as long as your garbage is out of the way, and we ask that you no longer continue with your activity on the West Porters Lake Road with your illegal dumping. And if like I said before, if you are that person who had dumped your garbage along the Marjorie Drive community in that subdivision, we ask that you again pick up your debris and move on with it. Because the person who brought to my attention, I'm not going to mention their name, because like I said before, many community newses, or when they're dealing with my political stuff, I do not reveal their names, because I like to have their names kept confidential from everybody, so their concerns can be brought up in a respectful manner, so their concerns can be heard and voiced. So I'm not going to mention this person's name, but they had contacted me on social media. You know who you are, and I am going to print those pictures off, and I will also give them to the press. I ask you guys at home also to give those pictures to the press, and I ask you to get more proactive on it. And because when you do this, you're actually protecting your community. You're letting people know that this activity is not welcome in your community, and you're also protecting your community at the best of your abilities. And when you get somebody that's literally dumping garbage on the side of a brook, you're putting your drinking water supplies, your environment and your abilities at risk. Because the majority of everybody in the community of Porters Lake has well, they depend on the well to get their drinking water. And when you got people putting garbage next to a brook that feeds into the main lake in Porters Lake, your drinking supply is at risk. Trust me when I tell you, it is. And when they had dumped garbage on the side of the Marjorie Drive community, I gotta tell you something. Also in that community by Marjorie Drive, there's also a brook that feeds into the main lake in Porters Lake. Again, that's another main brook that feeds into the lake. And again, we ask that you remove your garbage again. If you do not, you could be at risk of the RCMP banging on your door and possibly placing you under arrest and held in custody until a decision is decided on what to do with you. So I'm gonna take my hat off. I thank the person in that community who brought these pictures to my attention. I'm not going to mention your name because your name and your concerns are kept confidential, and your concerns will be brought forward. So again, Keith Caldwell what was today, December 4th, I was driving down the road in my car going up on the West Porters Lake Road. Keith Caldwell pulled off exit 19 with his truck, and when he pulled off with his truck, he had his big black trailer on the back, and we heard word that Caldwell was trying to help clean up the debris. Now, yes, that's the right move to do if it's true. If he does, I take my hat off to Keith, and I thank Keith for doing his contributions to the community, trying to keep it safe and protect it. But why should Keith, at his age of 73, jump into a ditch, break his back, all this work and wear and tear to protect the community, when we, the community, can be doing this where we're in better shape? But not only that, why should Keith be paying for the gas for his truck and all this stuff to remove junk what somebody put on the side of the road to put our community at risk and our drinking supply at risk? So I take my hat off to Keith if this is true. If you did get the truck to do it to clean it up, because when I came back, the tires and stuff was missing. So that says something, but I don't know if Keith actually did it or it's just a coincidence. He just happened to be driving by with his truck with a trailer on the back. It could be. But I'm going to go on to David Hensbee here. We were talking about this in the Chronicle Herald newspaper, and I brought this to his attention. When the press was talking to David Hensbee, and when his comments in the Chronicle Herald was, illegal dumping happens pretty much everywhere. Yes, that is true, but my concern is when you have an elected official say this happens everywhere, the attention what I get when I hear that is it's like saying, who gives a crap? We don't care. This jurisdiction, this responsibility falls in the hands of the province, which is out of the hands of David Hensbee. David Hensbee has no responsibility or jurisdictions over this, none whatsoever. But my concern was these comments. I mean, regardless of what your elected duties is, a more appropriate, in my opinion, professional comment would be more fitting for it. But this here falls in the hands of Kevin Murphy, your MLA. I brought it to Kevin Murphy's attention. He told me to contact 311 to have the removal process put in place. But this is the jurisdictions of the province, which would be the Department of Infrastructure and Renewal, DOT. But my concern is, if you were going to call 311, I did this in the past, and concerns about the old Musquodoboit Road, and we also asked this individual who dumped his garbage on the side of West Porters Lake Road, do not consider putting your garbage on the back of the old Musquodoboit Road also, because we will find you. And my concern is, when you call 311, we were brought up a concern about the old Musquodoboit Road. They didn't even know that that road existed. So my concern with Kevin Murphy is, when you tell us to contact 311 to have illegal dumping removed from our community on the eastern shore, if the old Musquodoboit Road is not on their computer or not on their maps, the old Musquodoboit Road has been intact since the days of the native indigenous people. The native indigenous people actually once used the old Musquodoboit Road. The old Musquodoboit Road used to be the main road from Porters Lake right out to Dartmouth. If you want to go to the city, you had to go through the old Musquodoboit Road back in the heyday. And I mean, if you're going to go look at that road's about 400 or 500 years old, if not older. The city, the HRM, the region of Halifax doesn't even have that road on their maps. So my concern is if I was going to call 311 and if they don't recognize that road because it's not on their maps, even though that road been there since the days of the dinosaurs, this is a concern. This is a concern where David Hensbee, the council member of our community, has to identify why is the old Monza Road not on the city maps for the roads. The old Monza Road in Porters Lake is still maintained and owned by the province, so that's a concern. So we'll go into our next topic, the Bellfotaine Road intersection. The Bellfotaine Road, West Porters Lake Road intersection had been an issue for safety-wise for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians for the simple reason, it's out of stupidity, when people are turning off the West Porters Lake Road to turn on to the Bellfotaine Road to go on to Middle Porters Lake, they often turn onto the wrong side of the road. They turn into oncoming traffic when they're entering the Bellfotaine Road while exiting the West Porters Lake Road to go on through the Middle Porters Lake community. Because of motorists turning onto the oncoming traffic onto the wrong side of the road, there had been a few accidents that had taken place. There have been a few near misses with pedestrians and a few cyclists. And it's to the point that community residents had safety concerns about that intersection. A few years back, when Sid Prest was the MLA from 2009 to 2013, myself had brought concerns about having road railings installed along the West Porters Lake Road, Bellfotaine Road intersection where the brook runs parallel to the intersection, because a few years back during a snowstorm, a motorist was driving too fast in a snowstorm. They overshot the intersection, and could you believe it or not that their car actually went over the bank. That's a good 20-foot drop. They survived the accident. They were in a Jeep Cherokee-like vehicle at the time, and their car went right down into the brook. This tree stopped them. Somehow they never got killed in this mess when they went off the side of the road. And how the car stayed on its four wheels, I'll never understand myself. We got her out safely. Paramedics all came. The RCMP showed up, and this tow truck, actually it was about 2 or 3 tow trucks, got this Jeep Cherokee out of the brook. And it's because the motorists on the Bellfotaine Road had been driving too fast. It's a 70-kilometer zone. A few community residents said they'd like to see the speed limit lowered down to 50 because they feel unsafe with the traffic driving too fast in that community. And not only that, but that intersection, like I just said before, there have been too many accidents, near misses, near death situations had almost occurred. And one of these situations that I suggested during this issue on that intersection is, why not have the RCMP do a spot check, watch vehicles as they turn on that intersection, and if they are turning on to oncoming traffic, have an RCMP officer issue a ticket, if not a subpoena for court, fine them, and start educating them to turn on the right side of the road. If not, over time you're going to lose your license. And when you're living in Porters Lake, and if you got to use your car to go to work to Dartmouth or Halifax, Lower Sackville, wherever it is you're going, it can be a long walk. And especially if you're going to depend on that public transit bus, the public transit bus does not provide a reasonable service to get you to and from your destination if you're going to work. But anyways, that Bellfotaine Road intersection had been a safety concern. There had been a series of accidents, near hit and misses. As far as I can tell, as of right now, there had been no fatalities. I'm not saying that there hasn't, but there had been a few accidents. Actually, I seen an accident take place there in July. Truck, actually I knew the driver, failed to yield to a car as they were coming from the West Porters Lake into Dartmouth. The driver who was driving his truck failed to yield to these to the person leaving from West Porters Lake into Dartmouth. They pulled out without looking, and the driver hit the truck, and the truck actually landed on top of another car, and that other car wasn't rode off, but it was damaged. And when the RCMP had showed up, the cause of the accident was because the operator of the truck turning into the Bellfotaine Road had failed to yield to the motorist at the intersection and towards the oncoming traffic, and they also pulled onto the wrong side of the road, which was the oncoming side of the road for traffic, and because of that they had caused a serious accident that almost caused death. Actually, I witnessed it, and the community had voiced their concerns. They're concerned about motorists, you know. In the community of Porters Lake, when you watch people driving, they go through intersections, are they actually going to stop as the stop sign suggested, or are they just going to bolt through? And majority of the time, if you see traffic around exit 20 turning onto the West Porters Lake Road, some of those cars don't stop at the stop sign. They just pull right out and they don't care. And, you know, my concern is, does the RCMP have to come out and start handing tickets, and do they have to start pulling driver's license from bad drivers? Because I suggested not only road railings along the Bellfotaine Road, West Porters Lake Road intersection, what about looking at potential traffic lights in that location that reduce the accidents in that location and reduce the safety concern in that location? I mean, traffic lights are normally warranted, handed out, if it's high volume traffic. That is true, but I wonder, maybe that could be looked at. Traffic lights could be installed at that location, but the concern is around noon time, there's no traffic at all pretty much. It's dead and quiet, but come 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, that's quite heavy traffic. And not only that, the West Porters Lake Road is too narrow for cyclists, pedestrians, and traffic to be traveled on any longer. And I suggested to our MLA at the time, Sid Prest, about looking at expanding the West Porters Lake Road, making it wider. I had not heard back from that when I made that request through Sid Prest to look into it, and my concern is every time when our MLA, if it was Bill Dukes, Sid Prest, or even Kevin Murphy at the time, if they were to go to the manager of the DOT, the infrastructure renewal, to have that road looked at, they often turn serious safety concerns away, and they often say the volume of traffic is too low to consider installation of traffic lights, road railings, widening the highway, whatever the case may be. My concern is that they overlook this, and because of that, we often have to count fatalities before things are changed. Alrighty, Halifax Transit park and ride update for the communities of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour. During my last session of community news, one of the things that I had mentioned was Councillor Hensbee's ongoing push and promise of a Halifax Transit park and ride for the communities of Mineville, Porters Lake, and Musquodoboit Harbour. And in 2012, only Porters Lake was provided a park and ride for the community of Porters Lake, and not the community of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour. After the years of this ongoing promise that we heard from our Mayor Halifax, Mike Savage, and David Hensbee, and after the years we also had not seen any sign of construction being done, it got me concerned, and I started looking into it. Why is these two possible projects being delayed? So I looked into it, and I called Mayor Mike Savage. I mean, me and David Hensbee are not on the same page, because I was not a supporter of his, because I was one of the people who decided to vote for a change in the council seat this October 17th, 2020 election. And I decided to contact Mayor Mike Savage, and Mike Savage actually called me back, believe it or not, on the phone, and we had spoken. He had stated that he is going to look into the Halifax Transit Park and Ride, what happened to the potential project for the community of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour, and they are going to get back to me, but chances are, like I said to the community of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour, brace yourselves for a negative response, what we may get, because I predict we are, because I had heard from a person from the Halifax Transit Facebook page who had heard the facts. I'm not saying it's true or not, this is just through the grapevine, that Halifax Transit project manager had squashed, terminated the potential Halifax Transit park and ride for the communities of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour. not going to happen, according to the information that I was provided. This information is not official. It's not in yet. I have not heard back from Mayor Mike Savage, because Mike Savage, usually when he tells me that he's going to call me back, normally he does, because Mike Savage is my former Member of Parliament when he was the Member of Parliament for Dartmouth Harbour, when I once lived in Dartmouth. And Mike Savage and myself have a good connection, and I am going to push to see what happened on this potential project that was promised to the community of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour. And like I said, I'm going to give you the answer. I'm not saying it's going to be a good answer, but one way or the other, you people are actually going to get the answer and not listen to the full of baloney, ongoing failed election promises that we had heard from Councillor Hensbee and the current Mayor of Halifax, Mike Savage. David Hensbee had been advocating for this Halifax Transit Park and Ride, which is good, but we don't want to see advocate. We want to see it in action. We want to see this constructed. The information provided to myself, the reason why Porter's Lake got a park and ride in the community of Porter's Lake in 2012 is because it was grandfathered in with their clause, whatever agreement with the city had with the community of Porter's Lake. And because of the grandfather clause, something like Hubbard's, that they had got their transit park and ride. My concern is the community of Mineville, that the Halifax Metro X buses, even from Dartmouth to Porter's Lake, the bus has to pass through the community of Mineville to gain access to the community of Porter's Lake. I don't understand why the community of Mineville cannot have a park and ride constructed, because if it does, the ridership is going to increase instantly and it's going to be very successful. The average pass mark for ridership is 14 people per trip. The community of Porter's Lake, before the pandemic, had been receiving 16 to 20 passengers per trip in the morning, but had been falling below that margin in the afternoon. Maybe 2 trips, 4 o'clock and 4:30, they'll have their 20 passengers per trip going back home. But the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 3:30, and 6:30 run, they had fallen below the 14 passenger trip margin. But if the community of Mineville was to have that park and ride installed, that problem will be quickly fixed, and they will have the Halifax Transit ridership to where it needs to be, sustainable and dependable. But until then, if that park and ride is not constructed, the low ridership and the loss of that service could be a reality. My concern is the community of Porter's Lake has enough people to keep it going, but it's not dependable. For a Halifax Transit bus, if it has below the 14 passengers per trip, it sustains you're at risk of having your community services reduced or being terminated altogether. So either way, one way or the other, I am going to provide you the answer to this delayed project of the Halifax Transit Park and Ride for the community of Mineville and Musquodoboit Harbour. Again, I can't say I'm going to give you the answer what you want to hear, but one way or the other, come high hell, hot water, you are going to get the answer. So anyways, that's community news, and I thank you for tuning in, and we'll hear from you again. Thank you for